The reading today is from Proverbs 1. For gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction in prudent behavior, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to those who are simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance, for understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They are a garland to grace your head, and a chain to adorn your neck. My son, if sinful men entice you, do not give in to them. If they say, "Come along with us, let's lie in wait for innocent blood. Let's ambush some harmless soul. Let's swallow them alive, like the grave, and whole like those who go down to the pit. We will get all sorts of valuable things and fill our houses with plunder. Cast lots with us. We will all share the loot." My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their paths, or their feet rush into evil. They are swift to shed blood. How useless to spread a net where every bird can see it. These men lie in wait for their own blood. They ambush only themselves. Such are the paths of all who go after ill-gotten gain. It takes away the life of those who seek it. Out in the open, wisdom calls aloud. She raises her voice in the public square. On top of the wall, she cries out. At the city gate, she makes her speech. How long will you who are simple love your simple ways? How long will mockers delight in mockery and fools hate knowledge? Repent at my rebuke. Then I will pour out my thoughts to you. I will make known to you my teachings. But since you refuse to listen when I call, and no one pays attention when I stretch out my hand, since you disregard all my advice and do not accept my rebuke, I, in turn, will laugh when disaster strikes you. I will mock when calamity overtakes you. When calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster sweeps over you like a whirlwind, when distress and trouble overwhelm you. Then they will call to me, but I will not answer. They will look for me, but will not find me, since they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. Since they would not accept my advice and spurn my rebuke, they will eat the fruit of their ways and be filled with the fruit of their schemes. For the waywardness of the simple will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will live in safety and be at ease, without fear of harm. This is the word of the Lord.
Well, good evening again. If you haven't met me, my name's James. You might remember me from, well, over there a few minutes ago. It's great to be able to unpack this passage tonight. Let's pray before we look at it. Father, we thank you for your word, the scriptures that we have. Spirit, would you be speaking through them to us tonight? Spirit of wisdom, guide my words, guide our thoughts, our meditations of our hearts, guide our minds, and guide our response and receptivity tonight, I pray. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 99, wear sunscreen. If I could offer you only one tip for the future, sunscreen would be it. The long-term benefits of sunscreen have been proved by scientists, whereas the rest of my advice has no basis more reliable than my own meandering experience. I will dispense this advice now. Anyone remember that? Okay, great. About 7 hands, well done. Can I also have a show of hands? Who of you was born from 2000 onwards? 2000 onwards? Okay. What about 95 onwards? Okay, right, okay. I'm 35, and I remember these words very, very well. On the 12th of June, 1999, Baz Luhrmann, the Sunscreen song, based on an article in the Chicago Tribune from 2 years earlier, charted at #1 in the UK singles charts with this spoken word about sunscreen. And I think it's particularly relevant. When I planned this talk, I did not know how hot it was going to be today. This is my 4th top today, just to put that one out there. If anyone can beat that, please do come and speak to me at a distance later. But this song goes on to say many other things. Enjoy the power and beauty of your youth. Keep your old love letters. Throw away your old bank statements. Get plenty of calcium. And accept certain inalienable truths. Prices will rise. Wisdom from about a quarter of a century ago. You might say some kind of wisdom literature, but our reading today is really ancient wisdom literature from many, many years previous. And of course, looking at the news and being in our world today, we need wisdom, just like those first readers of Proverbs would have needed wisdom. Today, we start our new sermon series, which is on the book of Proverbs, which is found in the Old Testament. And this is the first one, so I want to give a little bit of an introduction to Proverbs later on. In future weeks, you might be a bit surprised because the passages will not be as long as that one. They might just be 1 or 2 verses because we're going to take a thematic approach to the book of Proverbs, picking out particular themes that come out throughout the whole book. And the sermon series is called Winning at Life. So I'm going to put this on. I did not deserve this, and I'll explain that a little bit in a moment. And to be honest, when Jit, the other associate vicar here, said, the new sermon series is going to be Winning at Life, a part of me inside died. I really cringed. I'm not really a fan of that phrase, winning at life, and that's for 2 main reasons. The places where I've really seen people say winning at life are either an ironic way or a prideful way, and both of those aren't great. The prideful thing is like when someone does something really amazing or impressive, and they just say, I'm winning at life, and I'm like, so cringeworthy. Pride leads to many dangerous places. But then there's the irony. You mentioned, Lois, your gift of those Yorkshire tea bags. I was in Sheffield for many years before this, and they are, my wife assures me, a very good tea. I don't drink tea myself. But as I was preparing for her morning cup of tea the other day, I split the 2, not quite down the middle, and then tea leaves went everywhere. And I feel like if I was the kind of person to use this phrase, I would have gone, I am winning at life. But I didn't say that because I don't really like the phrase. And don't worry, I will go on to stop critiquing the sermon series title soon. But the whole idea of winning at life means, well, if you're winning, who does that mean is losing? Is it yourself, your former self? If you're winning at life now, previously were you not winning at life? Or perhaps is someone else not winning? Your life is going so well that you're attaining things and performing in such a way that you are doing better than others. And of course, winning naturally carries the idea that someone else is losing. Now, I kind of rushed here today, and I don't really know what happened in Wimbledon today with the men's singles final, but I can assure you that unless it hasn't finished yet, someone lost. And the other day when Norris finally managed to get to an amazing goal for him in his career. He got to the semi-finals of a Grand Slam in the tennis, and he didn't quite get all the way to the final, but an amazing achievement. I don't know if you've been following the Women's Euros. I'm looking forward to it. It's already started, but I'm looking forward to how the tournament develops because I'm excited that England have a chance at winning. But with a chance of winning and perhaps an expectation, there comes great pressure. I mean, do we put too much pressure on ourselves to win at life? And of course, there is a proverb that's probably known to most of us. Winning isn't everything, it's the taking part that counts. I've got a 5-year-old son, and we've been kind of trying to teach him about like winning and losing. He likes making up new games. We're trying to teach him like board games at the moment and how to play some like more advanced ones, and he's picking them up. But there's this kind of look in his face when he realizes that he hasn't won, and we're still working with that. But there's still great joy in playing together, isn't there? Well, I hope there is. Some people absolutely love winning, and it's all about winning for them. But I also want to maintain good relationships when I'm playing sport or games. So, Winning at Life, our sermon series title, what it's really about is living life well, making good decisions and choices, living wisely. And that leads us to the Old Testament book of Proverbs. If you have it open in front of you, then that's great. It's just after Psalms in the Bible, about halfway through. And there's 66 different books in the Bible, and they're all different kinds of literature. Proverbs is wisdom literature. There's lots of letters in the New Testament and other types of books, history books. And of course, when we come to a particular kind of literature, we come to it and read it in a particular way. If you're reading a novel the same way as you're reading a recipe book, something has gone wrong, yeah? You read them in particular ways. And the intention of the book of Proverbs was about molding character, and particularly for young people, which, as we just established, is quite a fair few of us tonight. The practical outworking of wisdom through the book of Proverbs is about making and choosing good decisions, which enables full and godly life. Winning at life, you might say, in that context, living well. And I actually preached on a passage from Proverbs in a previous sermon series earlier on in this academic year. And I talked then about how culture and language play a part in different things with Proverbs. And now, I hope you're going to do better than this morning, because they were very reticent this morning at the morning service. But I would love to hear some Proverbs from the floor. Any Proverbs you know. I'd love to hear maybe a British one or two, maybe something from another culture. Lois, I was wondering if you could whip round with the mic. Do we have someone who wants to give us a proverb? Come on, don't be shy. Yes. Contestant number 1. The light at the end of the tunnel is an oncoming train. Yeah, that's an interesting one. It's the light at the end of a tunnel. You know, the light at the end of the tunnel is sometimes a positive thing, but actually it might be a train. Interesting. I like it. Go on, let's have another. Come on, let's have another. Ah, yes, Nathan. Thank you.
A rolling stone gathers no moss.
A rolling stone gathers no moss. And Nathan, can I press you? What do you think that proverb means?
Yeah, I think it means that as long as you keep moving, then you don't get covered in stuff, basically.
As long as you keep on moving, you don't get covered in stuff. Okay, yeah, I like it. Go on, let's have another one. Let's have another one. There was a hand over here somewhere. There we go. It's amazing how little you can see up here with the lights. It really is.
I don't know whether this is really a proverb, but I think it is wise. As my mother and father always said, unless you tell us the truth, we won't be able to help you.
So what was that? Unless you tell the truth?
Tell us the truth, no matter what, and we'll be able to help you. You know, if you don't tell the truth, we can't help you. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a proverb about telling the truth. Now, I'd love it if we could have a proverb from perhaps another part of the world. Oh, one right at the back. Go on, Lois.
The same sun that melts the clay is also the same sun capable of hardening. Sorry, wrong one. The same sun that melts wax is also the same sun capable of hardening the clay.
The same song that melts wax is the same song that... Same sun.
Sun. The sun in the sky.
Now you also realize I can't see much up here. I can't hear much up here. Okay, thank you for those proverbs. Now, the thing about these proverbs is, firstly, I can't hear them. Secondly, the thing about proverbs is, when the first time you hear one, you're like, what does that mean? And when we asked about the Rolling Stone, it gathers no moss, it's like, what does that mean? And the thing about proverbs is that there is a point behind them, but they're not really they're not always that literal. They're pointing to something, but they need a little bit of explanation. There's a reason behind them. There's other ones that I'm aware of. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. And that's like, well, you're looking at something, but don't judge it by its first appearance. And there's some kind of wisdom behind that. And the point with Proverbs is that they're short, they're pithy, you might say, they're easy to remember, hopefully, sometimes even contain rhyming, which might be lost in translation, or wordplay. And this is the same as we get with the Bible and the Proverbs, in Proverbs. They're expressing truths in memorable ways. And the point is that we don't analyze them in precision, but determine what they're trying to communicate to us. Now, what we had in Proverbs Chapter 1 was a kind of introduction and flow, and that actually continues on for the first 9 chapters. And after that, we have all these really short kind of couplets, 2-liner Proverbs that continue throughout the book. So let's actually look at Proverbs Chapter 1. It's separated into 3 sections, and I'm going to start with the last one. Section 3, verses 20 to 33, is wisdom speaking. And if you've got a Bible in front of you, you'll see most Bibles kind of split this up. So verses 20 to 33 is wisdom speaking out, the personification of wisdom. And it's beautiful poetry. I would really suggest you read it again. And it's about paying attention to wisdom and not disregarding it, simply listening and responding to it. And then section 2, verses 8 to 9, it's a lesson from a father to a son containing the urge to listen to instruction and teaching. It's also got something about a mother and the mother's words not being disregarded by a son, which was excellent this morning in the morning service when we had a mother and reading the passage and a son in the congregation. Eyes met. And the opening 9 chapters go onwards in this way. We have these kind of lessons from a father to a son. Listen to instruction and teaching. Be careful about who you follow so you make good decisions. I mean, as I said, after chapter 9, we get to these 2-liners, such as, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffer harm. But the opening few verses are really, really significant to the book of Proverbs, the first 7 verses. They're really the prologue, the introduction, the theme, the purpose of the book. And verse 1 drops in Solomon's name, who was known in the Old Testament for having wisdom. People visited him to hear him speak his wisdom. And although much of the book is attributed to him, really it's a collection of him and other wise people in the time. And then verse 2 launches into the theme of Proverbs. If you have it in front of you, it says, for gaining wisdom and instruction, and then for understanding words of insight. For gaining wisdom and instruction. And gaining wisdom is about being skillful in good judgments, doing what is just and fair and right, as verse 3 says. And then also for understanding words of insight. Sometimes listening to Proverbs and listening to wisdom, you can hear it, but then it's like understanding. Verse 6 unpacks this further, understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. And all this leads us to ask the question, well, what is wisdom really about? What is it to be wise? What is wisdom? I wonder if, for a moment, you could just imagine and think about someone who you think is wise. Just picture them in your mind. I hope you can find someone. Otherwise, you need to meet more people and more wise people. But what makes them wise? What is it about them? Is it their experience, their knowledge, their learning? Perhaps the way they make good judgments. Perhaps it's the way they communicate. Perhaps it's the way they sit in silence and ponder things. What is it about them that makes them wise, from your opinion? Now, wisdom in the Bible is not just located in some person, but with God himself. I wonder, was anyone picturing Jesus in their mind? So chapter 1, verse 7 of Proverbs reads this: the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And I think this needs some unpacking. The fear of the Lord. And particularly if English isn't your first language, this certainly needs unpacking. Because the word fear initially sounds, okay, what's this all about? There's similar expressions in other parts of Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of the Lord leads to life. Now, the word fear is translated in other parts in the Old Testament as dread, or being terrified, or having reverence, or standing in awe. And in this context in Proverbs, I think it really captures different elements of this word, which is a complicated word. It captures a both shrinking back in fear and also a drawing closer in awe. It's a coming to the Lord and knowing who he is. That he is the creator. That we are the created ones. It means coming in humility to him, knowing that he loves us and cares for us, but being aware of who he is. And I think this is the first and controlling principle of biblical wisdom, the fear of the Lord in this way. Proverbs is a book about wisdom, and its introduction makes it clear that wisdom starts with acknowledging who God is and our place in relationship to him. God is so other, so different, so holy, but God is so close at the same time and wants to know us so closely. Wisdom starts with trusting and acknowledging who God is and who we are. So I'd say the first step in biblical wisdom is knowing God, committing your life to him, truly giving yourself over to him. And of course, this is a once and for all decision, but also an ongoing one as well, giving yourself over to God. And if you haven't made that once and for all decision before, then myself or Lois or anyone else from the staff team would love to speak to you later tonight and pray with you. So the general direction for living a life of wisdom will be set by following God and committing to him. And over time, specific guidelines, perspectives, principles will be learned with your relationship with him. Perhaps a good definition of wisdom is this: the ability to make godly choices in life. And of course, how can we make godly choices if we don't know God? We're all, of course, on a journey with this. If any of you lacks wisdom, James writes in the New Testament, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So it's very clear, if we want more wisdom, we can ask God to grow us. But we don't always get things right, do we? We don't always make wise decisions. I mean, if anyone here says that all your decisions are 100% wise, perhaps we need to go back to that pride thing. We carry regrets and shame, don't we? Replaying those unwise decisions in our mind. And unwise decisions have consequences, don't they? Relationally, financially, and of course in other ways too. And that can be really, really hard for how we walk and continue going through life. But we need to remember that in this, our God is a God of forgiveness and freedom and restoration. No matter how many unwise decisions we make, we can always turn back to the God of wisdom. I'm reminded of the story of the so-called Prodigal Son. Jesus tells the story of a son who asks his father for his inheritance and then squanders it in a far-off land, and then comes to himself and says, what am I doing? I need to go back to my father and say sorry. And as he's preparing his speech and coming back, the father sees him from a long way off and welcomes him back, embraces him. Our God, our loving Father, longs us to come close to him. To look a little bit more at wisdom, I would love to play a little game with you. It's quite a simple game, but it involves some arms. So limber up. Okay, you ready? Okay, this looks a bit like an F, so I'd love you to do that for F. F is for fruit. Okay? That's right, very good. And then this is a V. V is for vegetable. Great. Rob, there should be some slides. Great, thank you. The first slide, please. Okay, this is broccoli. What do you think it is? Okay, we got lots of V's. It is a vegetable, congratulations. Okay, next one, Rob. We have some blueberries. Yeah, we've got mostly fruit. Mostly fruit, yeah. Yeah, okay, it's a fruit. Well done. Okay, next one, Rob. Or celery. Apparently, eating this actually takes up more calories than you receive from it. I mean, that's mind-blowing. And it is a vegetable. Well done, everyone who got vegetable. Okay, next one. Carrots. Straight out there with the V's. It is a vegetable. Okay, bananas. Fruit. Very good. However, also a herb. What? Research that one later. Okay, next we have strawberries. Fruit. Okay, very good, very good. Actually, according to the website I looked at, a multiple fruit which consists of many tiny individual fruits embedded in a fleshy receptacle. Okay, and the last one, tomatoes. Oh, I definitely heard someone say, everyone thinks it's a vegetable, but it's a fruit from someone. It is a fruit, okay. Tomato is a fruit. If you could just leave the tomato up for a moment, Rob, that would be great. So here's the knowledge, here's the definition. Fruits come from the flowering part of a plant and contain seeds. In contrast, vegetables are the edible parts of the plant, such as the leaves, the stem, the roots, and the bulbs. So feel free, if I've got any of our wrong food specialists, to correct me later. So with a tomato, what is it? Well, it's a fruit. But the point is, and this is one of my favorite proverbs I've ever heard, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in the fruit bowl. Or as someone said earlier on after the service, wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. Thanks, Rob, you can take it down. And then someone else said to me after the service earlier on, and philosophy is tomato ketchup a smoothie? Ponder that one tonight when you're going to bed, guys. But the point I'm trying to make is knowing stuff does not make you wise. It's what you do with it. You know, I'd love to come around to one of your houses one day. I was like, James, would you like a fruit salad? I put a tomato in it. Knowledge is knowing stuff, but wisdom is knowing what to do with it. Jesus says this in Matthew 7. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Jesus tells the story at the end of his Sermon on the Mount, widely acknowledged to be the most incredible teaching the world has ever seen. And it says, when he finished this, the crowds were amazed at his teaching because he taught as one who had authority. We should not just listen to Jesus, but what he says, put it into practice. Jesus declares in Matthew's gospel that someone greater than Solomon has come, greater even than that wise king of the past. Jesus is here. And if you look at Solomon's life, not everything he did was that wise. Wisdom literature in the Old Testament points forwards into the new with Jesus. He is the one who enables us truly to win at life for a number of reasons. I mean, firstly, he gives us life. Secondly, he is victorious. He has won the victory. So by uniting with him, we are victorious. We do win at life by being united with him. He is wise. You know what? Jesus only did what he saw the Father doing, it says in John's gospel. He was doing his Father's will. I mean, how do we know how to make godly choices? Well, look at Jesus. I mean, Jesus is God, God incarnate. Jesus lived a life of wisdom on this earth, and we can examine the Bible to enable us to follow in his wise living. And in Proverbs 1:5, it says that the wise are encouraged to listen, the discerning are encouraged to get guidance. Life is a continual journey of learning and growing. This is discipleship, living as an apprentice of Jesus. And it's key to part of our vision here at Holy Trinity Leicester, following Jesus, making disciples and raising disciples. And being a follower of Jesus means to continue to grow and learn, continuing to grow in wisdom as we grow in relationship with him. And the Spirit, of course, helps us in this by guiding us into wisdom. So if you remember just one thing from today, that we learn wisdom from God, from Scripture, from Jesus himself, and through our continuing relationship with him. And of course, wear sunscreen.